start off by talking about the sales call. So, as I mentioned, the cold call is not always the most enjoyable part of the prospecting day for a lot of folks. But what I do want to let you know is that it's okay to call prospects. Those of us that have been in sales or are in sales, I think we get a lot of bad rep from folks out there, just sort of the dreaded sales call and why are you calling me and that sort of thing. But the truth of the matter is that people that need products and services need salespeople, and calling them is okay. If you're calling with a product or a service that can help somebody that they need, want, desire, that can be valuable to them, there's no problem with calling them. There's nothing wrong with that. So just want to affirm that right off the bat. And going right along with that is sales is an honorable profession. So again, sometimes we're lumped in there kind of at the bottom of the barrel with lawyers. But the fact of the matter is, when you need a lawyer, you need a lawyer, right? And when you need a service or a product or some help getting to what you need a salesperson. And the fact of the matter is, our economy, this country, really runs on the capitalist model. The economy of buying and selling is really what drives all of the great growth and progress we've been able to do. And so it is an honorable profession, nothing to be ashamed about. And when you pick up the phone to call people, that's just part of the business that we do, and it's perfectly okay to be doing that and to be in that business. One of my sales mentors that I really like a lot is Jeffrey Gitomer, and he has a saying that he uses a lot. He says, people don't like to be sold, but they love to buy. Now think about that for just a second. People don't like to be sold, but they love to buy. And that's true, isn't it? Right? We talk a lot about shopping therapy or shopaholics. I mean, people love to buy stuff. And when you've got the right product at the right time that meets a need, and you've got the means to purchase it, doesn't that feel good? It feels good to make a deal, to close that deal and actually buy something, even if you're the one on the end that's shelling out the money. It feels good if you're buying the right thing at the right time. So the whole gist here is to stop making blind cold calls to unqualified prospects that don't need the product, don't want the product, aren't in the market for it, that don't know anything about you, that you don't know anything about, and to really try and warm those cold calls up. Now, I'm going to tell you that blind cold calling is really a thing of past generations. And today the key is to not go in there completely blind. Now, this is not a true, some people would consider a warm call to be a call to somebody that you've had an introduction to. Either you've met them, they are a past client, or somebody's made an introduction somehow, some way, or you've at least passed some marketing collateral on to them in the past. And I'm not talking about that exactly. What I'm talking about is warming up the cold call. So you're still going to be calling people that maybe you haven't talked with before or warmed up them yet, but you're going to go in, you're not going to go in blind. And that's kind of what I want to show you how to do today, and with something more of value to them versus just selling them like Gitomer talks about. So some of the problems with that blind cold calling is that what we're talking about is just that random call to an anonymous list of people. So you don't know them, they don't know you, you're just dialing numbers, and often goes something like this: hi, I'm Robert from ABC Company, do you want to buy? No, click. Hi, I'm Robert from ABC Company, do you want to buy? No, click. And that's the blind cold calling model, right? Oftentimes you don't have a person's name even when you do that, particularly in the case of what a lot of our clients tend to be is looking at commercial buildings, commercial properties, whether you're a commercial real estate broker or a lender, a commercial mortgage lender. You look up a property address and you get an LLC name, right? So you don't even have a person's name. So how does that call go? Hey, hi, I'm Robert with ABC Company. Can I talk to somebody that has something to do with 1238 LLC? That just right there sounds like a cold, bad sales call. Also, a lot of times with the blind call, you have limited business information or any information about the owner whatsoever. So again, it's just you're going in so cold that the sales call just sounds like you don't really care, and that's an important thing. And don't forget gatekeepers. So anytime you pick up the phone and you don't get the exact person that you want, again, because you may not even have a name, you don't even know who you're calling, you've got to go through a gatekeeper. And a lot of times those gatekeepers, if they smell a cold sales call, you're not getting any further. And so you've got to get past that somehow. And the gist of all of this is, and back to Gitomer's quote of people don't like to be sold, but they love to buy, is that blind cold calling is that definition of just selling versus engaging. You're not really trying to engage with somebody. So all of this leads to an annoyed prospect, which doesn't lead to too many meetings, appointments, and closed deals. All that being said, guess what? Cold calling works. Okay, so a lot of you are probably right now saying, but this works. This is what I've been told to do. And yes, the fact of the matter is that it can work. It is a numbers game. You've all heard that before. And in fact, I imagine, and I don't know what exactly your business is like and what your market is like, but I imagine if you made if you dialed 300 cold numbers a day, you'd probably get some results, and you'd probably do a decent amount of business. But that's going to be a very inefficient use of your time. You're going to spend a lot of time doing research, trying to get those numbers, and actually dialing them, and getting a lot of people on the phone that are annoyed because you're just making this really, really raw cold call. But what if you could load the dice? What if instead of making 300 cold calls, you could make 40 calls to a highly targeted list? Now, again, these are still cold in the sense that they're not people that you have interacted with before, but what you've done here, and what I'm going to show you how to do and kind of walk you through, is really massaged a list and really targeted and honed into a list of people that are more likely to be in the market for what you're offering and what you're selling. That's going to give you more time to spend on high dollar activities, because remember, researching and picking up the phone and calling, while that's a very needed thing to do, you need to be generating leads every day, it in and of itself is not high dollar making activity. The high dollar activities are meeting with a client, signing contracts, presenting your offer. Those are the high dollar activities, and that's really what you want to be spending most of your time on. Researching and dialing phone numbers is not a high dollar activity by itself. So you want to get freed up to spend more time on that. And by the way, when you are freed up to not spend so much time dialing 300 numbers a day, you've got more time for your personal life, which is always a bonus as well, right? So how are we going to warm up those calls? What can we do to make the calls more relevant and more valuable? Well, first of all, is your mindset. You should go into this, whether you know anything else about the prospect or anything else, your mindset should be one of serving rather than selling. It's your job to solve their problem, not your problem. Of course, you want to close deals, you want to make money, that's what we're in it for, but your mindset has got to be, what do I have that can solve their problem? How can I meet their need? How can I provide something of value to them? That's got to be your purpose for picking up that phone and dialing. You got to be thinking win-win. So I was with Keller Williams when I was in real estate, and one of their mottos, or one of their 10 core values, is win-win or there's no deal. So you've got to be going into this thinking, I want to make sure that they get out of it something of value as much as I do. Then secondly, you got to understand the prospect's mindset. So remember, you pick up that phone, you make a really really sales sounding call intro. Hi, my name's Mike with ABC Realty. Do you have a few minutes? That just sounds like a sales call. And you're not going to get past many gatekeepers with that. And even if you get the right person on the phone, the response is going to be, what do you want? And how quickly can I get off this call? Now, how about if you tried a different approach? And this is just one idea. This is, instead of approaching it with, hey, I'm a sales guy, do you have a few minutes for me? You start off with, hey, Tom, maybe you can help me out for a moment. Now, what this does, and this is just one idea, but what this does is gets them on your team immediately, right? Because the truth is, everybody likes to help other people, right? When you're asking somebody for help, you're basically putting them in a position of power. You're putting them in a position where they can feel good about themselves because, hey, here's a chance for me to help somebody out. So when you pick up that phone and you say, hey, Tom, maybe you can help me out, excuse me, and maybe that the next sentence, is related to your field, whatever you're doing. So I can imagine if you're a commercial real estate broker and you have a property for sale, you could say, hey, Tom, maybe you can help me out for a moment. I've got this property for sale. It's near a building that you own. Would you happen to know any of your colleagues or other business owners that might be interested in this property? Or if you're calling Tom to ask him about if he wants to sell his property, hey, Tom, maybe you can help me out. We've got a lot of buyers that have been looking for properties very similar to yours. Do you know of any other properties like yours that might be for sale or might be coming up for sale in the next year or two? Right there, it's a very different conversation with Tom. And that's the point of it, is that you want to have a conversation, not a presentation. When you pick up that phone, even if it's somebody you've never talked to before, you're looking to have a conversation with them, not to present your marketing material or your pitch. And avoid leading them down an obvious sales path, and that just goes along with that conversation method. So, you should be engaging with them, listening to them, asking them questions, asking them for assistance versus some list of sales speeches that you want to go down. Then another thing you want to do is really target your market, and this is one of the areas where ProspectNow, and I'll show you this in a little bit, can really provide some value for you, is getting into targeting exactly who you want to talk to. I would say don't waste your time calling everyone. Again, the shotgun approach can have results, but the more you're able to hone in on your market and target what you want to go after, the better chance you're going to have of getting people that want what you're selling. Then, and this ought to be a no-brainer, right, is know something about their business. Know what the background is on them, know who you're calling, have a name, okay, get a real person's name and a real phone number, know something about their business, do your research. You've got to go in there knowing something about who you're calling, and have a reason to call. So again, like in the examples that I just gave, I pick up the phone, hey, Tom, I've got buyers that are looking for properties. So there's a reason to call there. You're not just saying, hey, Tom, have you thought about selling your property? That's focused on your need. You're looking for a listing, right? But when you say, hey, I've got buyers, I'm calling you because I have a real reason that maybe you can help me with, or any number of a dozen reasons to call. And you can go out there and find, look for lists. If you haven't already, you need to get a list of reasons to call. When I was in sales, I used to have, literally, I posted on the wall right above my phone was reasons to call, and they were everything. You remember, I was in residential real estate, and they were everything. And I was calling not just cold calls, which I did those also, but I would call people that were in my sphere of influence, friends and past colleagues. And so I would have things like, call on their birthday, call if you have a listing near their house, call with a market update, call, so I had this list, and I would recommend something like that. You need to have a reason to call when you pick up the phone. And then find a personal connection. So it goes back to knowing who they are, who you're calling, knowing something about their business. Maybe when you pick up the phone and you call, or before you pick up the phone, you research that person, you check them out on Google, you maybe find them on LinkedIn, and you find out that, hey, this person went to college in the same state that I did. Or maybe they grew up in the same area as you. Or maybe they have a hobby that's related to one that you have, or something like that. Anything that you can find out where you can make a personal connection, and just use that to warm up that call, to warm up that conversation that you're having with them. So, the bottom line here is, how can we find the actual decision makers for owners and tenants? And our business and what we're offering at ProspectNow is focused on commercial properties. But how can we find actual decision makers for owners and tenants who want to do business with us? Well, that's what the million-dollar question is, right? So what does that look like the traditional way? Now, this is getting into, how do you find those people to call? How can you target that list? How can you really hone in, instead of calling everybody on the planet or even everybody in your city? How can you drill down into the list that you want to get to? Well, there's a lot of databases out there, right? There's a lot of sources of information out on the internet and from title companies and from banks sometimes. You've got property addresses, then there's from Secretary of State websites or other sources. You can get LLC and company information. Then from there you might look up and find a data source for partners' names and owner names of those companies, because you got to have a real person to talk to, right? Then maybe you can check another database for phone numbers and get an actual number for a real person. Don't forget there's the do not call list is out there, and if you're calling end consumers or you're calling folks that may not be their business number, you want to make sure you're in compliance with the do not call list, so that's important. You need to check that database and those lists. If you want to get an email address, that's typically something that's going to cost you a lot more to get access to emails from people. You can go out there and buy lists, and a lot of this data is, or pretty much all this data is accessible and available. Some of it is out there for free. Some of it is you're going to have to buy from different vendors on the internet and elsewhere. Then you've got your MLSs. So if you're looking at properties, you want to get expireds, let's say. You go to your MLS and you pull out a list of expireds, and now you've got addresses, and you go back to the beginning. Then maybe you want to get loan data, check what kind of loans they have out on it. Are they behind on their payments? Are they current? What about NODs? Has anything been filed against them? What about industry codes? I'm looking for tenants. And you can just see that all of these databases pile up, and there's just a ton of information out there. And really, for the most part, this has all been in separate buckets and separate databases out on the web or in other places, and it's not been easy to get to. So you can do this. You can get to it. And in fact, what you're going to find is that the process can be done. So the way this looks like, even at a very simple level, and this is just kind of straightforward. Let's say you start with an address. Maybe you start at your MLS and you get an address of some expired commercial property listings. Now you've got your addresses. Well, now you go to another data source, maybe the title company, and you get the names of the LLCs, the owners on title for those addresses. Now you've got an LLC name. Now you got to go to another source, the Secretary of State's website, perhaps, that has the LLC data, and you can get a member partner name. So now you've got a person. Okay, well, the Secretary of State typically doesn't give out phone numbers, so now you take that person's name, you know roughly where they do business or where they live, what state anyway, and you do a search on something like InfoUSA or one at whitepages.com and try and get a phone number. And if you're lucky, you get a phone number, and now you can make a phone call. Add that to a spreadsheet or a CRM tool that you're using and repeat that process. Now, to do this a few times might be pretty straightforward, and you can do that, and it's going to take you some time, but you can do it a few times. But to really build a business and to have a database of people to contact that are the right people in the right location that meet your search criteria, you're going to need to do this research about 1,200 times to get a really good, robust database of people that you can contact and work with. Now, what we've got at ProspectNow, and I'm going to show you a demo, and I'm going to tie this back to warming up those calls in a minute, but I needed to get through this to kind of show you where we're going with this. But what we've done is we've taken all of those data sources that was on the overwhelming slide a couple slides back. We've taken all of that data, boiled it down, put it into a single database. So now when you want to sit down and you want to make your calls, okay, you can target people that meet your search criteria, so that's warming up the call right there. So now you've got, you can search the data to get just exactly the right people and the right types of searches that you want, and then you can get phone numbers from them too, because what we've taken is all of the property data, owner data, phone numbers, tenant data, emails. We've boiled it down into a single source. And it's accessible, and I'll show you this in a minute, but it's accessible through the internet, through your computer, your laptop, iPad, iPhone, whatever. And you can put it in a spreadsheet. But here's what I really wanted to show you. And this is how you're going to get a more efficient phone call with when you're making the calls. You're not going to just take a list of blind numbers and addresses and start dialing. What you want to do is really focus in on the right people who have a good likelihood of being in the market for your product or service. So a lot of cases, our clients are bankers, lenders, roofers, real estate brokers who want to work with property owners, right? So what we do, or what you can do, is you can search for specific things like multi-asset owners. So here's a way to warm up a call. I could just call anybody at random, right? Or what if I pick up a phone and I call somebody that I know for a fact owns 3 or 4 or 5 or more properties in my area? Now, that's a very different call to make. For one, it's efficient. I can make one phone call to somebody who owns 5 properties versus making 5 phone calls. And then when I make that call, I'm able to talk to them and say, hey, I'm calling about such and such property. I know you have some other properties in the area, and I just want to talk to you about them, and then, whatever your pitch would be after that. Out-of-state owners is another good one. So here again, you know something about the property owner. You know something about that prospect when you make the call. And so when you make the call, you pick it up and say, hey, I work locally here in the area where you own a property. I know you own 160 Oak Avenue, and just wanted to let you know that property values are up a lot in our state. I don't know if you know that, in our area, and have you considered selling? So those calls are very different, and it's a warmer call, okay? And these are just some of the other ways that you can search the database, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. But it's the whole point here is that being able to get more efficient with finding the right kind of people to make your calls to is going to help you go from a straight blind cold call to a call that you know something about the prospect, you know something about their business, and you know that they have a good chance of being in the right place at the right time for your product or service, right? And that's going to be a more fun way to do business and a more easier calls to make, frankly. I put this in here about Ken Hoff. Ken is a owner of a business that he founded called Multi-Housing Equity Partners, and he's one of our clients. And I put it in here because we actually had Ken on a call a couple months ago where he was talking about how he closed a $275 million deal by using ProspectNow. And in fact, that $275 million deal that he closed was one of the largest transactions in real estate transactions in the U.S. in 2013. And you can listen to that. That call is on our webinar on our YouTube channel. And what's really fascinating about it is that Ken shares not only how he found the person using ProspectNow and made the call, but how the exact script he used when he made the call that got him. And in fact, and this is interesting because a lot of people I know make cold calls don't leave voicemails. They just figure a voicemail is never going to get a call back. Ken shares the script that he used, which he left as a voicemail, and got a call back that resulted in a $275 million deal. So it's worth a listen. If you go to our YouTube channel, you can find the Ken Hoff deal. But suffice it to say that he made that deal, initiated that deal using ProspectNow, finding the right person at the right time by pulling up their the building owner's name and contact information, and getting a phone number. So that's the Ken story. Let me show you how this works for those that are interested in the database itself and what the tool looks like. When you first get into ProspectNow, you're getting this dashboard of where you can put in a quick search here. So this is the quick search bar under where it says enter location. And here right away you get into the ProspectNow tool. We can start searching right off the bat, and I'll give you an example. Let's search on a street, Lincoln Avenue in San Jose, California. Near where we are here, we're going to search for commercial properties all along Lincoln Avenue. And this would be a scenario where, let's say I have a listing on Lincoln Avenue, and I want to call other property owners around my listing and just let them know, hey, I've got a new listing, wanted to know if you knew anyone that might be interested in it. And so you can see here that our obviously got a list of properties all along Lincoln Avenue here in San Jose, and you can see then our list of search results. And just a quick navigation on what this screen has. So again, we've got the quick search bar is still here. We've got the map that shows the results of our search, and then below the map is the list of properties that matched and that we can now start calling on. And now if I click on one of these, what it's going to do is pop that information now into the details page to the right of the map. So the first tab is the property information, and this is going to show you information that is pretty readily available out there. You can get this information usually from title companies or county records websites. This is information like last time it was purchased, what the parcel number is, what the size of the lot is, if it's got a building, what the size of the building is, and that sort of thing. It's on the owner tab where things get really interesting. If we click on owner here, now you can see this Paha investment. So first of all, this property, it's this one is on what, 1100 Lincoln Avenue. So it's 1100 Lincoln Avenue is owned by Paha Investments. Now, see, if you got this information from the title company, typically all you're going to have is that Paha Investments, and I presume that's a company or an LLC or something like that, and you don't have a person's name. And that's where you're going to have to spend time doing research, getting behind that. But what we do with ProspectNow is we dig a little deeper, and you can see that we provide you right away, right off the bat, here's Alex Beyer. And Alex Beyer is one of the partners and organizers of this LLC, okay? And in fact, if we scroll down a little bit, we've got an owner company. Now what you'll notice back at the top is Paha Investments is at 66 Potrero Avenue in San Francisco. And Beyer, California, same name as the partner of the LLC, Beyer, California is a company also at that same address at 66 Potrero Avenue. So now we're getting somewhere. We've got not only do we know the LLC owner name of the property that we're interested in on Lincoln Avenue, now we've got an owner company and we've got a name, Alex Beyer. I scroll down a little bit more and I see, okay, here, this Beyer, California, there's a Joe Feldman. He's president and COO of Beyer, California. COO, that might be somebody worth talking to about this property. Let's say you're interested in either finding a seller or a buyer or something like that. COO of the company might be a good call to make. But before I pick up the phone and call Joel, and here's his phone number right here for Beyer, California, but before I pick up the phone, I'm going to click on this LinkedIn button here. You see this? I want to see if I can find some more information about Joel before I call him. I'm trying to warm up that call, right? We talked about that. So I click on the LinkedIn button, and down here a little window pops up and it says, hey, I found 2 people named Joel Feldman in the area on LinkedIn. The first one is somebody that's the VP of Finance at Otis Spunkmeyer. I think that's a cookie company, right? I don't think that's the Joel Feldman that we want. I click the next one, and here's Joel Feldman, President COO at Beyer, California. That's my guy. I click on View Profile, and up it comes in LinkedIn. You have to have your own account on LinkedIn for this to work, and it'll ask you to log in. And here's Joel. So President COO of Beyer, California, went to University of New York, Brooklyn College, born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. And here's a whole bio on him, background on Joel. So now this is going to be a much more, it's a warmer call. It's a much more interesting call when you pick up the phone to talk to Joel because you've got some background. And I'm going to read through this, and I'm going to try and find a couple of points where I can make a personal connection, where I can, I don't want to sound smarmy and cheesy, but I do want to know some background so that I can make that call just a little bit easier to make, okay? So that's the kind of thing that you can get into using the data in ProspectNow. Let me show you a more advanced search, because that was just a straight search that we did on just a street in San Jose. If I go into our advanced search field, let's say I want to look at something more interesting. And you can see, remember I told you that we give you not just a list of names and numbers, but a database that's highly searchable. There are all kinds of information you can search on the property, location, what city, town, zip code. You can search by radius around an address. Then there's all the property characteristics. You can search on commercial property, industrial. You can limit it just to apartment buildings if you wanted to do that. You can just search whether it's owner-occupied or not, what year it was built, building size, all of this stuff. Down on the left side, we can search on owner data, where the owner lives. So I mentioned the search where you want to contact out-of-state owners. So the way you would do that, in addition to any other search criteria you put in, you would click on all states, and then uncheck the box where the property is. So in my case, if I'm searching in California, I'll select all the states and uncheck California, and now my search results are only going to give me property owners who are outside of California. So people that maybe don't know my market as well, and maybe don't realize that their property is worth a lot more than it was 2 years ago. And then on the right side over here is financial data, and this is where, for those of you who are in the banking industry, lenders, and that sort of thing, you might want to search on things like when was the property last refinanced, or show me properties that were refinanced 7 years ago, or 6 to 7 years ago. They might be coming up due for a 7-year loan that might be maturing. So you can also search on the current loan amount, the last sale price, any of those things. So let me put in a search here. Let's see, California, Sunnyvale, or Santa Clara, California. I'm going to search on, let's say the city is Sunnyvale, and I'm going to do lot size. I want large lots, let's say 30,000 and above, and a building size of, say, 5,000 to 10,000 square feet, okay? So let's just do that search like that. And just for fun, I'll throw in a financial data thing. How about if we said that the assessed value on this is, let's say, greater than $4 million. Did I get 4 million there? Yeah. Okay. So we'll search on that. Let's see what we get back. So we got 7 results, which is, that's all right. We've got, I did a pretty narrow search, right? I did one city, I did a certain lot size, building size, and assessed value, so it's okay. Remember, we want to narrow our results. We want to make fewer calls, but make them to the right people. So if I can call these 7 people, or building owners, because they match my search criteria, those are 7 better calls to make. Now let's take a owner right here. Let's click on this Alvin Chan. Now my phone number is in here already. Oh, one thing I want to point out, you'll notice in here sometimes the phone number is not here. Instead it says contact owner, okay? And the reason for that is that we look up that phone number at the time you request it. Obviously, people change phone numbers. They get new cell phones. They move. They change. Whatever their phone number is changes, and so we want to get the most current, fresh information for you. And so if you haven't looked up the number before, it'll say contact owner. And then when you click on contact owner, it'll go out and look up that number. So for example, let's click on the contact owner here for these folks. It's going to come back and see. Now in this case, it didn't come back with the result. And I'll tell you, we don't have 100% coverage on phone numbers, and no system does. We're going to have about 60 to 70% of phone numbers for commercial property owners, and that's it's not 100%, but it's better than you're going to find in any other single source of data information out there. So in this case, we didn't get one. The Alvin Chan one, obviously the number's already there. I want to show you how that worked when I did the search for Alvin before, because it was pretty interesting. So I'll click on this phone number, and it's going to go out there and do the search. And what it came back with was a phone number for Alvin Chan Inc. And that's exactly the exact match for the person that we were looking for. So that number is a very clean, good number for Alan. So then I just save that into my contact manager, and then there's the number. Now in this case, Alvin Chan Inc. is the owner, and there's no other background LLCs or companies for him. So that gives you an idea of how that phone number search works. Another advanced search that I want to show you, so one of the things that I'd like to talk about with folks is how to do an address search for a list of addresses that you already have. So let's say, for example, you have been monitoring properties on your MLS that are now expired, and you'd like to call on those expireds. Now, I called on expireds when I was in the business, and the hardest thing with expireds is usually getting the phone number, right? Because your competitor who had the listing, that has now expired is not that keen on giving you the phone number, right? And so usually the phone number, if they're smart, is not in the MLS anywhere. They've taken that out if it was ever there in the first place. And so you've got to research and get those phone numbers. Well, that's exactly what ProspectNow is for. So what I would do for that is I go over here to my spreadsheet, and let's say, just for argument, this is my list of expired properties, and I want to look up and see if I can find some phone numbers for them. So I click, I select all of the addresses, do a copy, and now I'm going to go back to ProspectNow, and the place you do that is this multiple address search box. So you click on that tab, and you just get a blank box. So what do you do with that? Well, you literally just paste in your list of property addresses, and you notice that I didn't do any special formatting with them. I just have the address, city, state, and zip, each address on a different line, and I click search. And so now what that's doing is going out there and finding all of the property owners for those addresses that I put in. And so this would be my expireds, and these are now folks that I can start calling. You can see a lot of these, the numbers are already there because we've looked them up before. And then there's some here that maybe aren't in there, or maybe we didn't have them. But that's how you would do an expired. And the for sale by owners work the same way. So if you're going around town and you're monitoring for sale by owners, you get those addresses and you put them into a spreadsheet. And whether you've got 5 or 6 or you've got 50, you just dump them into ProspectNow and pull up the addresses. You pull up the owner's name, their phone number, and away you go with making some calls. And again, I would do the same thing with these folks. I would look and see if they've got a LinkedIn profile, if you can find it. See if you can get any background information that you can on these folks before you make the phone call. Okay? All right. So that is the gist of the demo of what you can do with the product. And by the way, I'll show you one more thing. You can search by tenant. So I know there are brokers out there that focus on tenant rep, and it works pretty much the same way. So for example, in this case, if I wanted to look up, say, Verizon in Phoenix, Arizona, and it's tenants, the Verizon tenants in Phoenix, Arizona, and click search, and it just goes out there and pulls up here, in this case, 8. Apparently there's 8 Verizon stores in Phoenix, Arizona, and now I can go through and you can see all their phone numbers are here. If I click on one, then it's going to pull up the company information in a tab here, and then all of the other data that we have from before is just the same. So the property information, so here's the address that Verizon store is located at, the owner of that property, so the owner of the property where the Verizon is, and then any history or tenants information. Of course, we know the tenant is Verizon. So that's how the tenant search works. And there's an advanced search for tenants as well. You can search by industry codes. You can search by number of sales, number of employees, and that sort of thing. So finishing up the the presentation here, I just want to talk about ProspectNow. We've been around since 2008. We were headquarters here in Silicon Valley, in Los Altos, California. We were profitable. This is kind of just some background on us. Might be interesting to note that one of our key investors is Dennis DeAndre, who is the founder of LoopNet, and he really saw the value in the kind of tool that we were providing to the real estate industry. Currently have over 2,000 customers all across the country at multiple firms. One thing that is I wanted to mention before we finish and we're wrapping up here is kind of what can you expect in terms of return on investment with ProspectNow. Well, we talked a lot about warming up those calls and getting more efficient with them and focusing and freeing up your time. So I just give this example. We did some testing a couple years ago to see how more efficient folks can be with using ProspectNow. And what we found was actually better than what I'm putting here. I kind of went more conservative. We actually found that the increase in efficiency is more like 175%, but I'm using 150%, which means that if you could typically research and call 25 calls in an hour, then you could do 50% more would be 37.5 calls in an hour with using ProspectNow. It's actually higher than that, but we'll go with that number. And because you're able to make more calls in an hour, let's just say for argument that instead of prospecting for 4 hours a day, you only do it 2 hours a day. Okay, so now we've decreased the amount of time we're spending on lead generation in half, and we're making 75 calls in those 2 hours versus 100 calls in 4 hours before. So we're making fewer calls, but we're only doing it at half the time. And by the way, and this is the other key point, is the number of calls to get a meeting. So our baseline that we were working with, it was about 56 calls to get an appointment or to get a meeting, and that was when we were calling random kind of blind cold calling. But with using ProspectNow, or however you're getting to a warmer call, you can expect to increase or improve on that number, and you do it in, say, let's say 40 calls to get a meeting instead of 56. Well, what that means is that you're able to get, again, working 2 hours a day, making 75 calls, 9 leads a week. Number of leads to get a transaction, let's say it's 20. That's been kind of our working number. And that means about 23 transactions in a year, then, based on those numbers. Let's say you close 80% of those, so 19 deals in a year, and then kind of just going through on a standard, and this is kind of based on a investment sales commission of 2% on a $700,000 deal. That would be a net of about $262,000 on being able to make those 2 hours of call. And remember, you're spending half the time prospecting because of the efficiency factor. So just something to think about. Throw it out there in terms of what the value could possibly be here. So those of you that might be interested, just kind of how it works and what the cost is on ProspectNow, hopefully it's something that might be interesting to you. We do have a monthly subscription. It's $89 a month, and it's $10 for each additional month. So 1 month is $89, 2 months $99, etc. You can get a big discount on annual contracts, or if you want more of a full state or whole region access. So you know, obviously this was a little bit blend of some valuable information on how to turn cold calls into warm calls, combined with a presentation on how ProspectNow can help you with that and pull it into make those calls warmer. And if that's something that looks like it could be of value for you, please contact us. You can go straight to our website. You can call our number and get a personal demo of how it works. If you've had any questions about anything that I've shown you, you can contact one of our sales folks and really dig in deeper with that. So I hope this was helpful for you, and I appreciate you spending the time this afternoon with us on the call, and I wish you all the best and happy prospecting, everyone.